Good morning.
Good morning.
Bună dimineața is how you would say it in Romanian. I haven't yet mastered the Ukrainian, so I won't try. I don't usually bring my phone up, but that's what I have my notes on this morning. So, as I begin, I guess, I want to ask you to maybe think about a time when you had to trust God in the waiting, or when you didn't understand what He was doing, or maybe just you felt like you were alone or in the dark or you were failing. I kind of want you to think about that as I'm speaking to you today. So, my name is Casey. I cannot click. I serve as a Nazarene missionary in Romania. I've been there since 2015. And so I really try to help children and teens share God's big love in small everyday moments. I think I had just started using that phrase when I was here with you last time, but I really like it, and I feel like it really encompasses what I do, and so I'm going to keep using it. So I grew up in the Freeport Church, as you might know, and so it's a privilege to just continue to be part of a church that really believes in missions, that gives to the World Evangelism Fund. I'm sure there's lots of things that you're doing in your community related to missions, and so I'm just glad to be a part of that type of thing with you. Again, sharing God's big love in small everyday moments. One of the ways that I kind of document my life, personally and ministry, is I take 1-second videos every day. And so I have a little video just to kind of show you in moving pictures what that looks like. So I'm going to play that. It's about 2 minutes long, but just so you can kind of see it, what it looks like to share God's big love in small everyday moments. There is music, but it's all right. I know those go very quickly, but hopefully as you see pictures and as you hear me talk, you can kind of get a better idea of what things kind of look like. But as I was preparing to share with you today, it's always really easy for me to talk about Romania and what I do, but because I'm not a preacher, I'm just a normal person, which I know preachers are too, sorry. I'm a social worker. I'm not like, I didn't go to seminary, nothing like that. And so I always just feel like I have to preface that. But I usually just really like to share about, again, what God is doing in another part of the world, and also kind of what I've been learning in the last now 7 years, but mostly in the last year or so. And then, of course, I want to share a little bit about what our response has been to the war in Ukraine. And so I'll share a little bit about Romania and mostly about my experience in working with Ukrainians and whatnot. So, but over the last probably year at this point, I just kept kind of hearing this, trust the timing. I've been in a transitional season for longer than I would prefer to be. But I just kept hearing this, trust the timing, in books and podcasts and conversations with friends. Beautiful things take time, just kept popping up. And so paired with this kind of constant reminder of Psalm 23, I'll kind of be combining those ideas as I share a little bit about what I've been doing. I'm not great at always trusting God. I want to be, and I think that I am, and then something happens, and I'm like, oh, well, maybe I don't trust as much as I should. But even though that's a struggle, just time and time again, I see when I look back, or when I look back at these videos that I've been making for probably the last 5 years, I can really, I'm almost like left in awe of how he is so faithful and so good time and time again, always, always, always. So, because when I was preparing to go to Romania, which tonight with the teens, I'll kind of share more of my story of how I ended up there, and why I never thought that that would be my story, because I was not good enough, Christian enough, anything enough, and I could never do that. Why would I be the one that was called to do that? And so, but I just knew all along, as I've looked back over the last 7 years, as I've had different experiences, I know that God was preparing me the whole way. And so I just want to read Psalm 23 to kind of, because I'll be tying this in throughout our time this morning. My eyes are not great. So, the Lord is my shepherd. This is from the Christian Standard Bible. The Lord is my shepherd. I have what I need. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He renews my life. He leads me along the right paths for his name's sake. Even when I go, I'm a crier, so sorry. That's why I didn't want this, so you can't hear it. Even when I go through the darkest valley, I fear no danger, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Only goodness and faithful love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord as long as I live. Our songs were very fitting. But I think in thinking about getting to Romania, and even now in working with Ukrainians, the piece that really stands out is, the Lord is my shepherd, I have what I need. All along, my whole life, here we go. I know that God was preparing me for exactly what I do today. We'll get there. So, super fast review of where Romania is. It's in Eastern Europe and is surrounded by Hungary, Ukraine, Moldova, Bulgaria, Serbia, and as you can kind of see, it's along the Black Sea. And so I'll have this map again later when we talk a little bit more about Ukraine. But Romania has a very interesting history. It was under communism for a long time. And so, things are very unique there. But I actually live in the region of Transylvania, which I say this every time, but yes, that is a real place. It's the orange one. And I live in this town called Sighișoara, which is a very, very beautiful city. And I'm very grateful for the places that I've been able to live. I actually just moved. I used to live, I don't know if this has a pointer. There's a tiny little orange house in that little part that I'm sure you can't see, but I used to live up in this beautiful citadel, and I've since had to move in the last 2 months, but God has provided, and it's a very, very beautiful place, and I can't complain. So, again, like I said, quickly, I just want to kind of review what I normally do. I always say there's no such thing as normal on the mission field. Every week is abnormal, which sounds strange, but it's true. So I work primarily with 2 people groups, so marginalized Roma children at a Nazarene Compassionate Ministries Child Development Center. And so it's a child sponsorship program through the church, if you're familiar with that. And we really just try to offer holistic child development, touching on spiritual, physical, emotional, social, and intellectual, really trying to meet a lot of their needs that do not really get met outside of the church. These kids are from a very oppressed people group, and so there's not a lot of resources, there's not a lot of education. And so I, along with Roxana, my coworker, she's Romanian from this village, and then me. So we do Bible lessons, it's kind of, Bible school plus Sunday school, plus a little bit of educational and physical. We offer warm meals and just do a lot of different activities. But one of the things that always impresses me is, sometimes for me, I feel like, what am I even doing? Is this really making a difference? Does this matter? Their lives are so difficult. These 2 times a week, is it really enough? And I need to not look at my own pictures. It's going to get worse on the next slide because you're going to see their faces. I never cry when I practice, and then I get up here. So again, I don't think we're doing much, but then I know that the kids can see the difference. So we start at 3 o'clock on Tuesdays and Fridays, and sometimes on Wednesdays there's homework help. But almost every time, every day, I get there probably closer to 12. And about 12:30, once they see my car coming through and they know, oh, it's Tuesday and it's about time for the program, they're waiting at the gate hours ahead of time. And so, I want them to be in school. Well, maybe they're not. Maybe they got out early, whatever the case may be. But it's just really sweet to see how much they want to be at the program. Okay, wait, it's not this one. And so I've just really had to learn how to trust God with them. It's really hard to understand sometimes why their lives are so difficult, why there's so much abuse and so much alcoholism and so much poverty and discrimination and all of these things. But I think I'm just reminded from this psalm, or rather I'm reminded that this psalm is as true for them as it is for me. And so, okay. So as you see their faces, every day I'm trying to share, like I said, God's big love in small everyday moments, and really just hoping and desiring that these children will feel loved, which is not often how they feel in their families or from their home environments, but really just hoping that they'll feel His presence regardless of what I do, but that they'll ultimately feel Him and know Him. And so, moving on, because we can't stay there for too long. So then the other population that I work with, again, very different, is English-speaking, middle-class Romanian teenagers. And so I run a program called Courage & Co., and so we really are trying to help young people feel seen, heard, and loved through intentional relationships and creative conversations. Courageous, not creative, that too. And so we spend time together once a week, but we often are doing stuff outside of the program. I invite them over to my house a lot. I make them play stupid games, which we'll be doing this evening, so you're welcome. And we just have a lot of fun, and we're trying to talk about character and decision-making and just life. And we often, I have a plan, and then they come, and they have their own plan of what they need to talk about, and so I'm very flexible, but I really am humbled that they want to share with me, and that, that they are just willing to open up and grow and develop. And working with teens is sometimes a challenge, especially even cross-culturally. There are things that are just hard to always understand. And again, it's hard to always feel like I'm making a difference, as we're only together once a week. As you can maybe hear, I'm a little bit of a pessimist, and I'm doubting sometimes of what are we meet once a week, what could we possibly be doing? But I think if I really think about my own life, youth group was once a week, and I mean, that was so many things for me, and so I just hope and pray that that is what this is for them too, that even when it's hard, just trusting that God is watering the seeds, planting the seeds, that I'm able to water, whatever, we're just this tag team of whatever it might be. And so a couple of these, a lot of the teens that I started to work with are now graduating from college, which I feel like I'm the same age as maybe Julie might feel too, but they are now graduating college and getting married, and it's like, you were just in ninth grade. I don't understand. But it's just really a privilege to be able to pray over them and continue to introduce them. During COVID, I was able to have some Bible studies online with the two girls in the bottom, and to really just invest in them and to share God's big love in small everyday moments with them over the last 7 years. And so I like them. So then February 24th. So kind of up until end of February, I was, again, doing my abnormal life of kids and teens and ministry and different things. And then Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24th, and that kind of changed a lot of things. I knew that I wanted to be pretty directly involved from the beginning. In 2016, I had gone to Serbia, Croatia, and Greece to work with refugees that were coming from Syria and Iran, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And really, it was one of the most difficult experiences of my life, but it was also incredibly rewarding. And so I knew that I wanted to be involved. But I live in the center of Romania, which maybe I didn't keep the map in. But and so from the beginning, there wasn't a lot of need where I live. The borders are 5 to 7 hours away in the different directions. And so I ended up sending an email to the woman, her name is Monica, in Bucharest. We have 3 churches in Romania: Bucharest, Sighișoara, where I live, and Sigmandru, the village where I have the kids program. But I knew that in Bucharest they were responding within days. They were hosting people. And so I knew she would be the type of lady that would tell me if she needed help or not. And so I just emailed her and I said, "What can I do?" And she said, "You can come down to Bucharest." And I said, "Oh, okay." So I drove 4 to 5 hours with a packed full car because people had given me donations to take down there. And so we did a lot of things in a lot of the hours of the day. And we're really just trying to respond and serve and meet needs with the help of, obviously, NCM funds that were given directly to the, I don't know what they called it, the crisis fund for the Ukrainian situation and whatnot. But we transformed the sanctuary. I didn't have the before photo, but this is their sanctuary. It usually has all the chairs. We spent probably 6 to 8 hours building bunk beds one night. We were all walking the next day, kind of just trying to get around because it was rough. But it was obviously what needed to be done, and that's what you do when there are needs around you and in front of you. And just a side note, so Monica is the pastor's wife in Bucharest, but she runs a shelter for survivors of human trafficking, primarily sexual exploitation. And so when I was down there, I stayed with the women in the shelter, which I had been down there before, but I never stayed there. And so that was one experience of just hearing their stories and getting to know them, and they're incredible women. But I think the piece of the story that really just hit me was that they are building the bunk beds. They wanted to serve. And I think a lot of that maybe comes from, they've escaped a situation, not war, but a very difficult, tragic life. So there are probably, 7 or so moms and 5 or so kids living in the shelter, and it would be so funny when we would get back in the evenings. They would be like, "Okay, tomorrow, though, can you watch my kids so I can go and I can build and I can help and I can serve?" And so it was almost like they were fighting because they wanted so much to go and serve and help our Ukrainian friends. And so we were able to turn the sanctuary into basically a bunk room. Monica has connections with IKEA just from her shelter, and she is a very well-known woman, and her work, people know that she's doing what she says she's doing. And so IKEA donated I want to say $10,000 worth of bunk beds, dishes, bedding, blankets, towels, dishes, all these things, 2 refrigerators. And so just over and over again, seeing how God was providing exactly what we needed. We wanted to house people, but maybe there weren't the beds. Well, we had the beds. The pastor created We used his office for extra housing. We had another, the children's space. So we were able to just respond immediately. And so whether it was cleaning or assembling bunk beds, we did so much in a very short period of time. And then the church owns another property called Velor, and so that had been used for missionary housing. It was actually about to be used for transitional housing for a few of the ladies from the shelter. They were going to move in there right before this. And when they were asked if it could be used, because they'd been waiting months for this to be their new, housing, their new home, and they were like, oh, no, we'll stay for longer. You can use this for housing for the Ukrainians. And so we were able to turn that whole space into different things. But you name it, we did it. I picked up food from across town. I had kind of avoided driving in Bucharest traffic for about 7 years. And it's a city of almost 2 million, and Romanian traffic is interesting. I'm looking at these people because they've been there, lived there. It is wild. And I actually have to tone it down now when I come back here because I'm a little too aggressive, but that's how you have to be over there. So I'm driving this 9-passenger stick-shift van through the center of Bucharest, which is something I would have never wanted to do. But God knew. He knew. I learned how to drive a stick-shift 9-passenger van in Romania. That was the first car I ever drove there. So here I was, cruising through town. But picked up food, organized donations, just all kinds of different things. We were just able to respond. And I don't say this to say this is what I did. Like, this is what we as a church did. We only had these resources because of what was given through NCM, and we're able to wait in line and figure out travel scenarios for people. A lot of people were obviously wanting to go west, even of Romania, and so they had a cousin in Vienna, so we would wait in line. I was here one day with a couple ladies for hours, but that is what we had to do. And Monica was able to buy plane tickets for people who were going to Malta, or there was a man who was from India, but he'd lived in Ukraine for probably 10 years, and he had limited options, and so we were able to buy him a ticket to go back to India. But again, all with resources of what we as a church were able to respond to. And so, watching people walk into the train station onto their next kind of unknown part of their journey with all of their possessions, most of what we were able to give them through donations, in reusable grocery bags. We just have no idea. And that's not our fault that we have no idea, but I think we need to be aware and have empathy and pray for these people who are just, the countless times where someone came in and they had a backpack, and I'm like looking around like, well, where's the rest of your stuff? Because I can't comprehend that, having to flee so quickly that all you have is a backpack. And so we were able to purchase, a lot of people came, end of February, March, it's cold like it is here. And so a lot of people came with jackets and boots and, winter clothes. And so we were able to provide them with spring clothes. We bought, spring shoes, and it was wild in the homes in the 2 locations when we came in with all of our stuff. Everybody was so excited about their new shoes, as you would be. They were just so sweet and so grateful. And so I know it's a lot of just details and what we did and this and that, but I also just want to show you some of their faces and families that we were able to get to know in their short time. So I was there for about 2.5 weeks. I went back to Sighișoara for a week and then went back down to Bucharest for another 10 days. So I'll say I was there a month in total. But in that first month, they had housed 100 people who were coming and going. So it was kind of short-term, a transit kind of stop. But we were able to, still get to know some of them. This is a mother and her 6 kids who are actually traveling on to America, who are so lovely. I mean, the strength of a mother is something. I'm not a mother, but man, oh man, that lady was a force to be reckoned with. And, young people that we ended up finding out were Christians. They had been staying, I think, for a few days. I think they were already there when I had arrived. And just in talking to them, the one that's kind of knelt down, he was like, "So are you guys Christians?" Which I think is always just an interesting question, because I think there's something that prompted him to ask that, something that he maybe saw. And so, we said yes. He asked about what kind of church. And then just in further conversation, we got to talking about worship music in different languages, Ukrainian and Russian, of course. And so we're sitting there, and all of a sudden they're trying to figure out what songs we all know in Romanian, English, in Ukrainian. And so The Blessing was one, and so all of a sudden everybody just is singing and humming in their own language, and it was lovely. And I think, thinking about the church all over the world, in different conferences, I've had the experience of all the languages singing together, and it's like, whoa, very powerful. And I just think this moment was so special. And of course, they were going to leave really early in the morning, and we were able to stand together and just pray with them and pray over them and protect them. And they've moved on. I can't remember to where. People went lots of places, but we were able to, write them and know that they were safe and being settled in a new area. And we don't always get that assurance to know that people have moved on to safety, but always really grateful when we can connect, and technology is truly a blessing for translation, especially because, let me tell you, I don't speak Ukrainian. But even celebrating, so much of this situation is tragic and traumatic and awful and horrible and all of those synonyms. But, we caught wind that it was this woman's 75th birthday, and so Monica was like, "Okay, you guys go, get a cake, quick." And I'm like, this is Bucharest. I don't know where to buy a birthday cake. And, again, Google. But we were able to, celebrate with her and sing to her, and just kind of to create, a sliver of normalcy for this woman and her family. And so just these kinds of special moments, eating together, they, at the beginning, it was a lot of come in, come out, do this, do that, go here, go there. There wasn't a lot of time to sit and talk. But we noticed that these ladies, especially when I came back the second time, there was a lot of well, do you want to stay for a coffee? And finally, I just was like, I don't care what else I have to do. I need to say yes to this. I could see that this was so important, to sit down face to face and have a tea, a black tea. That's what they drink. And to sit down and have a meal. The one day they were like, "How long can you guys stay today? Because we really would like to cook for you and, give a little bit back to you." And, I don't have this in here. I was not planning to say this, but just the desire to thank us, I don't know how it sounds, but the desire to just give us a piece of what they had. The lady sitting on the end with the polka dots, she gave me 2 little packs of matches that have the Ukrainian flag on them. And let me tell you, a teenager came over to my house and used one, and I was not happy with him. I was like, "Do not use my special Ukrainian matches." And he was like, okay. They're on my bookshelf, but they're displayed there. Anyways. Or, a piece of chocolate that was from Ukraine, which I did eat, but I took a picture of it because I wanted to make sure that I had that memory. And just such, they're so sweet. I just love them. And then, she's in the last picture too. Paulina and her mom, she's obviously a teenager, and we just really hit it off. Every time I would go and walk into the house, I'd be like, "Is Paulina awake? Is she here? Is she, around?" And they'd be like, "Oh yeah, we'll go get her because she's going to want to know that Casey's here because she's going to want to come down." And we just created this little special bond. And so the night that I left from Bucharest the first time, I knew I was coming back. I didn't know if they were going to still be there. And so I really wanted to do something with them. We went out in the old center of Bucharest. We tried on clothes. We, just walked around and had fun. And we each picked out a clothing item. And for me at least, and I hope for them, that's going to be like one of my favorite clothing items for a long time. And so we just really were able to build relationship and spend time with them. But then it was kind of time for me to go back to normal, which, nothing is normal. And so kind of right before I was leaving Bucharest, I was asked to coordinate, these are fancy terms, but to coordinate the NCM response in Sighișoara, where I live. And of course, my first thought, which if you know me, you know, was no, because I'm like, why would you ask me to do that? I don't know how to do this. I'm not experienced enough in this. I can find my reasons. But it kind of just, in conversation of, okay, well, then there's going to be these people who will come alongside you to do this, but, you know, you have this experience. I had what I needed. God had provided. He gave me this time with these ladies, this time in 2016, social work background, understanding a little bit of trauma. I've done, in probably the last couple years, more workshops and things about trauma, and so just understanding all of that and what that looks like, you know. Part of me sometimes can think, oh, all we did was offer them a bed. Well, we didn't do anything. But it's like, if you don't understand anything about trauma, it's just having a safe, fleeing war, active bombing, active a lot of the things, and having a safe spot to land to figure out what's next is, it's everything. You can't really look farther than a day ahead when your brain is just muddy. I don't know what word to use. And so just as time has passed, I've really been able to see what we were able, again, I say we were able to do, and how we were able to respond. And so that was also part of why I knew that I had to say yes to this, I won't call it even a position, but this opportunity to further coordinate things in the town where I live. And so, because as this was April, people had started to come in more and more into the country, farther in than the border towns. And so Veritas, an organization that I had worked with for many years prior to this, they had space that they were able to offer, so shelter rooms with bunk beds, a full kitchen, a living room area, and so I'll come back. April 13th, we received these 4 lovely Ukrainians. The gentleman has since gone back to Ukraine, not to where he's from, because he's from the east in Kharkiv, which is basically nothing to return to. But he had a friend in western Ukraine who was willing to have him stay, and I think he just really had a hard time not being in his home country, naturally, And so he just every day was like asking about how we could help get him back, and thankfully we were able to arrange transportation with people that we knew very well that were going to get him safely to exactly where he wanted to go. And so, yeah, we were able to make sure that happened. He was with us for probably a month or so. But yeah, once they got back, we were able to receive them. We started to get involved in what other organizations and churches were doing in our area. There has not been a lot of collaboration in our area between churches and nonprofits for a while, but this situation really led to a lot of amazing collaboration, which is such an answer to prayer, because we're all doing such good things, and we could be doing them together. And so we have probably 70 to 100 people, actually Ukrainians, settled in our area. And so part of coordinating that role was meeting with the other leaders in the community who were doing these same things and trying to get us all to be like, let's all do this thing together in partnership with our Ukrainians who have like experience in church or ministry or whatever. And so we were able to do that. It's very challenging, but yeah. So the ladies have continued to stay. I really just helped them do a lot of things, like figuring out grocery stores in a place you've never been, getting to the doctor. The woman in the vest, the one on the right, second to the right, she was pregnant, and so the ladies are a grandmother, mother, and daughter, and then she is pregnant as well. So finding an OBGYN for her to go to, and again, God knows what he's doing. We found an OBGYN who speaks Russian because she came from Moldova 20 years ago, and they speak Russian and Romanian. They speak more Russian than Ukrainian because of the area that they're from. And so, there you go. It was easy. I didn't have to intrude in on her, very private appointment. I could just say, here's the place. Here you go. And the gentleman had some health issues, and I had to take him to the emergency room, which I had never been to the emergency room. I'd never been to the doctor in Romania. I was terrified. But there was a Russian-speaking doctor that day on call, on duty. And, it's just little things like that over and over of these things that I was like, I cannot do this. I don't feel like I have what I need to do this. But trusting that he was going to figure it out, that he was going to guide me on the right day to the right person to the right place, was just really, really special. And so, we were able to host them for an Easter lunch, try to, again, create some normalcy. And it was very interesting when you have multiple phones translating multiple languages. It's a challenge, but I think just the effort to try to have conversations and to try to meet people where they are and to learn more about them and their families. And so the ladies had been living at Veritas in these areas, and they were very happy there. They really enjoyed the space. It was big and it was great, and they liked it. But because the one woman was going to have a baby, we really were trying to get them moved into a more long-term option, which is what was happening as well in Bucharest with a lot of the families who had just not been able, they don't have a relative in Germany, or they don't have, anywhere else to go. They're going to stay in Romania. And so, it went from short-term food, donations, bunk beds, to finding apartments to rent, being able to pay those utility bills with, again, the NCM funds that were gathered. And so the week before I left to come back home, the ladies were able to move into an apartment that the church owns, that another Ukrainian family had been living in. But they had, again, just timing. I'm not glad that they left at all because I really enjoyed them, but it just worked out that for this situation, I was about to leave. It was one less thing I had to think about and worry about as I was traveling home with a lot of other stuff going on, that God provided this apartment for them. And so the grandma works from home. They have internet. They had a desk. We were able to find tables and different things to kind of, complete the space. And so this was moving day, about a week before I left. And, things weren't perfect. There was water that was leaking, there's different things like that. But I think just that we were able to provide their smile, we were smiling, laughing, joking around, again, in our sign language and various translation apps. But I think, God was definitely just present in that situation. And so all along, this is not an easy field to work in. I don't even know what word to use. When you learn another language, sometimes English just escapes you. And not that even the Romanian word isn't coming to mind either, but I just have 0 words, so I'm trying. But basically all along, I had to trust God. This is not something I could do on my own. It was exhausting. That time in Bucharest was incredibly tiring. We went to bed late. We woke up early. We were going. We were driving. We were doing this. We were running there. And yet God gave me what I needed. He gave me people around me to encourage me and support me, and likewise that I could do for them. Just provided over and over and over again the needs that were there. We were able to meet them in so many different ways. And so in closing, I want to just remind you of what I asked you to think about at the very beginning. Trusting God can be very hard, obviously, as we probably all have had different experiences. And so whether it's trusting that He has a purpose for you, whether it's just knowing that, okay, what I'm going through right now someday will make more sense and I'll be able to use it, whether it's just trusting that He's with you in a very dark valley, or whatever the case may be. I think I just would encourage you and remind you that he is near to you, he loves you. Where are we here? Even when I go through the darkest valley, I fear no danger, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And I think, too, verse 6, I've seen over and over and over again in Romania, and now still in Romania, but working with the Ukrainians, just that goodness and faithful love will pursue me for all the days of my life. And, even when you're in the dark valley and you can't see it and you can't understand it, the one line of the song was, you shine in the valley or the shadow or something like that. And I just thought that is so true, that sometimes in those dark, dark times is when doesn't really make sense, but I think we know, the light can be the brightest then. And maybe it's looking back, but I just have I need to remind myself to trust God. So this is good. This is for me. But I've blabbered at you for far too long, but I thank you for listening. I just really am grateful to be able to do what I do, because this is not my plan at all, and it's incredibly challenging most days. It's all very abnormal, like I said at the beginning, but it's worth it. And so even when the dark valleys come and things are challenging, I'll stop. But out in the fellow foyer, fellowship hall foyer, I have a table set up with prayer cards, opportunities that you can support me financially or prayerfully. I have different things on the table and on the prayer card. I don't know if you remember my friend Adela, who was here in 2016. She's still a great friend. She's since had a baby. Her name is Taya. She's spicy. But I love her. And Adela has taken some of my door pictures, which if you've heard me speak before, I showed more of those door pictures. And so she has painted them. And so I have those available as well for sale out at the table. And so there's sets of doors. There's some of Sighișoara, the town where I live. But they would also be a good reminder of praying for Romania and what is going on there. And so, thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Casey, for your faithfulness and showing great faith in what you do. And church, Pastor Dallas had mentioned to me if anyone was interested in wanting to come tonight out to youth group in the Connection and talk more with Casey, hear more from her, play some of those games, that you're more than welcome to join her for that. I think we have some ushers that are going to get ready at the doors with offering plates. Ushers, if you'll take your positions. Don't do it too quickly, but... And what I thought we would do here, church, in closing is, Casey, if you're comfortable with this, we'd love to pray for you. Could we do that? Okay. So we're going to ask Casey to come down front here, and I'm going to ask all of you, church, those of you that can, we're going to gather around her. And Pastor Donna, I guess I'll call you Pastor now, but hey, you're never too old, right? So... would you mind praying for Casey? Would you be willing to do that? So, church, those of you that can, would love to have you come and gather around her. If you can't come, we'd just love to have you just reach out an arm, and we're just going to pray for Casey.
Father, our hearts are full as we have sat at the feet of Jesus and listened through the servant that you have worked through, loved, cared for, and allowed her to be Jesus to so many that needed to be ministered to. Thank you for the word. As she's brought that out, how familiar we are with the 23rd Psalm, but to hear it again and to see how each phase of the Psalm worked in her life. And we realized that the word is active and alive and active in our lives as well as you want it to be. And we give you praise that, Father, you are at work everywhere. Even this day, you're always doing something. And even in situations where we don't know how you're working, you are working. We just thank you for Casey, for the Nazarene Compassionate Ministry, how we have been able over here in the States and around the world to give to that, and then they in turn can send that money to where it's needed and to minister to the needs of people. Thank you for using Casey. I pray that you'll continue to bless her ministry as she speaks to other churches while she's here, that you'll continue to use her in the hearts of the young, those that maybe you would also call into ministry, and protect her and lead her in the days ahead to be exactly where you want her to be. We love you, Jesus. Our hearts are full, and we give you all the praise because it's all because of you. And we're humbled, and we're just so grateful. We pray it in Jesus' name. Amen.
And church, if I could just bless you this morning, if you'll hold out your hands and receive this blessing from the Lord. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. You are all blessed in the name of Jesus. Have a wonderful Sunday afternoon. And if you want to hear Casey and talk to her more, join her tonight out on the Connection at 6. God bless.